have copied from Adobe Illustrator, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste Command V, Control V on a PC from the clipboard, and you'll see it's the same paste as a bitmap, paste using the AI file importer preferences. That will work fine. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do that default and see what I have here. I have that S from the word shred, and that's going to become the shredder head that will shred my type. I'm going to jump over to Adobe Illustrator and copy the rest of the word. And then this, you'll see up here on the timeline, it created a layer with the S on it, but it says shred. That's because the document it came from was called shred. So I just changed the name in the layers here to S. Now I'm going to paste from the clipboard the rest of that word, same thing. And you'll see I've got HRED because that's the rest of the word. Note that it's on top of the S there because it's on a layer that's above it. See right here, and I'm going to go ahead and change that layer to just HRED, Pred. As I pull this layer down, see what happens? The S is above now because it's above on the layers. And so I'm going to take this Pred here. I'm holding Shift and pulling up. I'm going to start my animation with Pred right there. And next up is going to be, I'm going to make a tween. So I'm going to click on frame 1 here, and I'll right click and say create a motion tween. And it automatically does a 24 frame, 1 second tween. If you want it to be longer, you can just click on the edge and pull. In this case, 24 will be fine. And so that's what I'm going to stay at. And so if I move my playhead, this blue line here is called the playhead. As I move along, nothing's happening except for you notice my S disappears because on that tween, that only occurs in that first section there. And so I'm going to go ahead and on this tween, I'm going to move. So I'm going to do the same thing on the S layer here. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to right click and say create motion tween. So now I have a motion tween on both, and that will make them stay constant. I see them on my stage in this area here the whole time. So I'm going to move to the end of my animation on the HRED layer. And I'm just going to, with the move tool, it's right here. Letter V is the quick key for the move tool. I'm going to pull down. This paper is going to be shredded by the shred head there. And so I want this to come through there. And so that's what's happened. You see at the start, here's where it is, and at the end, there's where it is. So what happens is I move my playhead here. You see that it's just a straight motion. It's just like it's running through the shredder. Well, that's not too exciting. So wouldn't it be nice to get a little motion from this S here? So I'm going to go on the S layer here, and I'm going to move my playhead about 4 frames. So that's basically 1/6 of a second. And at that point, I'm going to click on my S here, and I'm going to hit Q. And what Q will do is it will give me this tool right here, the free transform tool. I'm just going to come to the edge here. You see this little arrow with a circle. I'm going to rotate it, and then I'm going to move it another about 4 seconds. I'll rotate it the other way. So I don't need to keep reselecting Q. I can just rotate, and then you'll notice in my playhead, my timeline rather, as I move the playhead and make a motion, if I don't do anything to it, it's not going to add a motion tween step. But as soon as I do a little rotating or moving, I could expand it, make it bigger or smaller. I could do a lot of things. Each time I do that, it adds a step on my timeline. And so that's what I'm doing. Just I'm going to have this S kind of wobble as the paper goes through it. And then at the end, I'll just end it straight again. There we go. And so now if I click this back arrow, you'll see the playhead will go all the way to the keyframe there. And now I'll push play, the play button right here. And you see the S moves as the HRED moves along. And so that's nice, but it's be a lot nicer if I had some sound. And so here's how we can add sound, and that's on your handout sheet. On my layer palette here, I'll click new layer right here, and I'll call this sound. And I need to right click on the frame wherever I want the sound to come in. I can right click and insert a keyframe. However, I need to have sounds. So right now I'm going to go to, see my library here. In my library, I have just the S and the HRED. Don't be afraid when you paste it. I didn't see it happen this time, but usually when you paste something in from Illustrator, it will say this cannot be done when you try to tell it to be a tween. It says it will have to be converted to a symbol first. Just go ahead and hit OK. That will be fine. So what I need to do to get sound in is, and this is all on your handout on the how to create a animation. You go to File, Import to Library, and then you need to find your sounds. Also on that sheet, I give you several sources for sound. And here I have an MP3 file. There's also a WAV file of a shredder. Either one of those formats will work. And I'm going to go ahead and click. So I'm adding this to the library, open. And then you'll see right here in my library, I've got that sound there. And so I can collapse that again. Now on this frame here, I'm on you got to have it on a layer, and it's a blank layer. And so I'll just right click here and say insert keyframe. And then once I do that, I can, at the point where the keyframe is, I can go to my library, and there's the MP3 file, and just drag it down onto the stage anywhere in this white area and let go. That's how you create a sound. You just add it to the library, and then you drag it at the point wherever you want. If I wanted to add another sound here, sometimes I'll probably redo this tutorial in Camtasia, and I'll add a little bit to it. Sometimes I'll take like this little piece here, this Chad, and I'll drop it down and have a little motion that will kind of weave in and out like it's falling. And then I'll add a little plop noise. And so what I would do when it hits the ground here, I would say on a new layer, I would just click on the playhead at that point, insert a keyframe, and then I would drag to that point. So as it hits the ground, it would say plop. So that's basically, real quick, how to create a motion tween. I've got two motion tweens, one with the S, one with the HRED. I haven't saved, and so that's making me all agitated and nervous that I'm going to lose all of my data here. So I'm just going to call this one. You'll notice the FLA, that stands for Flash. That's the Adobe Animate Native. So I'm going to call this Shred, and then whatever today's date is, 2720. And that's going to give me an Adobe Animate file. And then also I'll want to have a file export, and this is again on the page I gave you. I'm going to go to Export, Video, Media, and Export, File Export, Movie. And for this assignment, we're going to do a Swift movie. And we did that with our bouncing ball 2 weeks ago. So I'll export a Swift.